Good afternoon. There are still lots of seats down here to the front. I promise I will not throw anything from the stage. In fact, it's an easier tomato shot if you need to throw a rotten tomato, the closer you are. Thank you all for being here. This is basically just an update. Almost every time I do one of these, somebody asks me how many layoffs I'm going to announce. So I'm not doing any of that. So we'll just kind of get that out of the way right up front. I have a few more Way to Go awards to present today. Continue to do this. It's really fun for me. And there's so much great work going on in the organization. It's just really nice to hear about it, nice to see it, nice to get a chance to meet the people who are doing really great things here. So we'll get to that in just a minute. I do want to say welcome to our CMC leadership group that's here with us. Dr. Murray, we have 150, is that right? Plus or minus? Yeah. So why don't you guys stand up, those of you who are here, so we can recognize you. Yeah. Welcome. It's great to have you on the campus. It's a rare treat for us to get to host you here on this campus. And we all know that you all do an incredible job for a very needy group of patients who have very specialized needs, and you're caring for them in a very difficult context. So we appreciate that greatly, and you make us very proud. We talk a lot today about population health management and how we make it work across the country, and in the process drive the value of healthcare delivery. You all have been doing it for decades. You really set the standard for all the rest of us. We appreciate that, and we're going to continue to look to your leadership as we think about creating more value in the delivery of healthcare, because you do it every day. So again, thank you very much, and thank you for being here. Just some updates about financial performance, hospital openings, updates on dates, merit pay, where we are with that, food choices that are coming, and some of the parking service changes that are aimed at improving service to patients. So again, just sort of some questions that I'm being asked. And then I want to talk more about workplace safety. This has come up quite a bit in my conversations with people who really represent all of our workforce areas, not only CMC, but the campus here in Galveston, the League City campus, the outlying clinics, and our Angleton Danbury campus and its clinics. So we'll spend a little bit of time with that. Let me get into the Way to Go awards here. A couple of pictures. This is Lori Blackwell up here, and this is Marina Flomina, who works in waiver operations. Lori has just done an incredible job with veterans issues, and we've gotten a number of accolades relative to the program that she has been leading, facilitating the development of that program. And so it was really nice to have an opportunity to recognize her in about mid-December. Marina works in waiver operations. She works every day. And I actually got a letter from someone within the Texas Department of Insurance who regularly interacts with Marina, and pointed out the fact that she is always courteous, she's timely with information, she's very responsive. And of course, those are the things that we want to have happen, particularly when we interact with outside agencies and groups. So I had a chance to show up. I think I really surprised Marina. She turned about 15 shades of red. But it was really wonderful to have a chance to say thank you in person and do a little celebration with her and her coworkers. So I want to continue to do this. I've got a couple of, a big group I want to recognize, and then some individuals. I'm going to get a little bit of help here from Marianne. Yeah. So, Vanna, is that right? So, thank you, Marianne. First is recognition for our high-level disinfection SWAT team. Those of you who are directly engaged with the Joint Commission survey, its recent visit, we're quite aware that this is a point of emphasis now for the surveyors and particular survey, a small group of particular interested surveyors. And of course, this kind of goes back to the issue with decontamination of equipment used during procedures, more specifically endoscopes. And so even though we thought we had a pretty robust procedure here and we're following that procedure, there were some significant recommendations from this surveyor who was devoted to this cause. And so they got together immediately and helped us overcome some significant barriers to quickly coming into alignment with the recommendations of that surveyor and best practices that exist around the country now. So I wanted to call them out. Amy Lucier, Michelle Guinaud, Catherine Golden Beck, Michelle Millard, Ry Dorado, Shirley Shores, Cheryl Lynch, and Deanne Mee. So would you all please help me recognize them? All of these folks are really busy and over in the health system. I'm not sure if any of them made it. Are any of you here? Oh, well, yeah. Come on down. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the great work. How are you? Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have to do a photo. Everybody has their shirt. So we can put you on the next set of slides. All right, thank you guys. Great work. Really great work. The next is for Elizabeth Jansen. She's our clinical placement coordinator in the School of Nursing Baccalaureate program. And she continues to be recognized by people who work with her, collaborate with her, relative to just the way that she does her business. Now, she certainly helps us secure clinical placements for our students. She's very effective at that. But almost everyone who encounters her talks about the marvelous way that she interacts, that she goes about her business and basically represents all of us here at UTMB. So knowing that that's a standard for all the rest of us, I just wanted to recognize Elizabeth and say, way to go. Please come forward. Thank you. Thanks for the great work. Thank you very much. One of our legal officers is a major expert in labor law. And actually, much of the litigation we face today as an institution has to do with the application of labor law. There have been a lot of changes in the law, even more changes in regulations associated with the law, and even in interpretation of existing regulations. And of course, with 12,500 employees, there are always concerns about, are we using the law effectively? Are we treating our employees appropriately? Occasionally somebody gets unhappy with us, and occasionally those unhappy situations go to litigation. I just want to recognize Carolina Bremen for the great work that she does. You know, to do a job like hers, you have to be thoughtful, patient, a great listener, a good educator, and you know, it's incredible the way that you combine all of those talents to serve us so well. So thank you, Carolina. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Someone I think probably doesn't need an introduction to too many of us. Maybe some of us don't encounter him that often, but who's been a major force relative to our efforts with regard to creating a sustainable environment here on our campus. That's Ken Stebline. Ken started Earth Day here, and I think as many of you know, our Earth Day celebration, our Earth Day process now has become the model for major universities around Texas and around the country. He has led a number of efforts to help us conserve, recycle, again, create a much more sustainable environment here at UTMB, and we're frequently recognized as being among the leaders in the country as far as universities go for our efforts. So I just wanted to recognize Ken, say way to go, and I hope all of you will join me in thanking him for great work. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks for all the marvelous work. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Can we get a photo? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And I expect a large cheer for this next person. You'll understand why in just a moment. It's a recognition for Liz Moore, Program Manager, the Mother-Infant Bond CMC Operations. This is a novel program that Liz helped start about 11 and a half years ago. She's been to numerous units within CMC, been involved in numerous efforts, helped secure grant funding for this effort. She's a tireless advocate for these mothers who are within that particular system, assuring that everybody stays within the rules, that the children are safe, but this very important mother-child bonding can occur. So again, that's a sort of innovative leadership within a special area of expertise that's common at UTMB, but I don't think we call it out and recognize it as much as we should. So I just wanted the opportunity for all of us to thank Liz today for her leadership in this important area and say way to go to her. Well deserved. Thank you. I'll get a picture with you with your shirt here. Here we go. Thank you. Thank you. Now, what happened to you CMC folks? Where was the big cheer? Come on, let's hear it. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Well deserved for Liz. I have a couple of police officers I want to recognize, and as we talk about the safety of the campus, we'll talk more about their role as a force here, but a couple have done some pretty extraordinary things over the course of the past few months. The first is Sergeant Noel Layer. Some months ago, there was a very dangerous situation, not actually on campus, but off campus, involving some people who aren't affiliated with the university. Oftentimes our police, in collaborating with the Galveston Police Department and others, are called into service when no one else is available. And Sergeant Layer encountered this situation in which a man had an array of knives and was threatening to kill himself. And as those of you know who work with patients like this, these are very dangerous and unpredictable situations, and we never know where they're going to lead. The gentleman's wife actually called for assistance. Sergeant Layer arrived, and of course one of the most important things to do is just try to make everything calm. Your approach to the situation as the principal intervener often determines the outcome. And at least the way this was described, he was amazingly calm, he was secure, he assured the gentleman who was in distress and ultimately persuaded him to hand over his weapon and surrender himself, and then he was taken on for mental health care. So that's above and beyond the call of duty. He could have waited, he could have done something different, but he stepped into a very dangerous situation and did something that was extraordinary and life-saving. And so we're so proud of him, the work on that particular day. I just wanted to say, way to go, call him out, and have all of us recognize him. Sergeant Lair, would you come forward? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Congratulations. Thank you. And you all know our police officers are really humble. They hate recognition. So please understand that me calling them up here for recognition is the last thing they ever want to do. So appreciate their willingness to do that. Finally, Officer Matthew Stringer. He was on duty early on the morning of December 31st, was patrolling along the seawall and saw a SUV basically come down the seawall, go across it, and go off the seawall onto the beach. He immediately went over. There was a Galveston Police Department officer who arrived shortly thereafter. There were 3 people involved, a driver, a passenger, and another passenger who was ejected from the car. They encountered a very difficult situation wherein the passenger from the front seat actually had been slipped under the car, or under the SUV, which was on its side, and the running board was resting on that patient's head. So, yeah, a very critical situation. He immediately secured the area, made sure that it was safe to approach the car. Worked with the GPD officer to extricate that victim from that immediate danger. The Galveston EMS arrived shortly after that. The officers helped secure that patient in a backboard and helped them get safely off and transported here for care in our trauma center. So again, a difficult situation, unpredictable. Car on its side, that heavy on the sand, you never know what's going to happen. A patient who is clearly in immediate danger, the decision about should you move that patient, should you not move them, all of those things were racing through his head, I'm sure. His training kicked in as we would want it to do, and to me his efforts were extraordinary and probably did a lot in terms of making sure that patient wasn't further injured. So Officer Stringer, would you please come forward to be recognized by our group? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. So thank you all for helping me recognize great work. I hope that you'll continue to do that when you hear about things, know about things that are happening and that you think that they should come to my attention, send them to me. I hope also that we're taking the opportunity during our relay discussions that are going on. I think we're still doing those all across the campus. We're getting feedback that we're getting better at those and communicating reasonably effectively, improving communications. That's a great time also just to recognize colleagues for great work, or to say thank you, maybe recognize something that's happened in their private life, the birth of a child, the birth of a grandchild, something else, graduation. So again, I think the more that we can appreciate the great work of each other, the better positioned we are to go on and pursue additional success in the future. So recognition is very important. I really appreciate all of you helping me continue to recognize great work that's occurring here. All right, so moving on, financials. This is where we stand today as of December. And essentially, we're still pretty much on budget, just a few $100,000 ahead. Now, all of you know that this is a challenging budget year for us. The next couple of years, this one and the next one, are because of the combination of the closeout of the major Ike projects, bringing our 2 hospitals online, the desire to recruit a lot more people to help us offer services to meet that demand of patients that continues to grow. And so I appreciate the marvelous work that all of you, all of our colleagues are doing across our 3 campuses and all of our outlying service areas to help keep us on budget. We're concerned, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the hospitals in just a minute. The fact that we haven't been able to open the League City Hospital on time just puts more pressure on our budget. So as we go forward, we're in a good place right now, not because necessarily because of what we predicted would happen has happened, but because we've been able to adjust to the circumstances, adjust our approach, and so far we're holding our own. So we're okay, but it is going to require a diligent effort by all of us to continue to stay on budget and track according to those projections for performance. If we don't do that, it begins to limit our ability to make the investments, to do the recruitments, to support our programs as we think we should. So obviously, the onus is on all of us to continue to do the great work that's been done. I really appreciate all of your help in getting us to this point, at this point in the fiscal year. Thank you very much. Now, there's some different numbers here. We've had some things shifted around in the budget. Essentially, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but if you have questions, certainly our finance folks can answer them for you. I can certainly answer the questions about the big numbers and what the variances are. And if anybody wants to take this up during the question and answer period, happy to do it. I just wanted to show you where we are and ask for your continued work with us to help us meet our budget targets for the year. All right, hospital openings. I think all of you are aware of the fact that we plan to move patients into the new Jenny Seeley Tower on April 9th. That's a Saturday, the second Saturday in April. We're going to have the big party to celebrate the dedication of that facility the last weekend in February. So we'll have some tours on Thursday for employees. On Friday will be the formal dedication day. That's when we'll have a lot of visitors on the campus and formal dedication ceremony that afternoon. And then on Saturday we'll be open to the public before we move patients for tours of the new facility. I think some of you have been in there already. We're moving furniture in, continuing the commissioning process, installing and testing equipment. I had an opportunity to walk through a number of the areas last week. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm so proud of the facility. I was walking through, still pinching myself, because we're going to have a chance to use it for our patients to be provided care in that facility, for our students and residents and fellows to learn there, for our faculty to be able to take advantage of the marvelous opportunities that it brings for teaching. So I think all of us are very excited about that and look forward to the coming weeks as we dedicate that new facility and get it open for patients on April 9th. Our plan now is to open the League City Hospital in early June. We expect substantial completion of that facility in early May. We had hoped to have it open by now. We ran into some significant issues with our original contractor. We ended up having to work with the UT system to terminate the arrangement with that contractor. We're moving forward again. And what we decided to do, rather than open that hospital in 2 phases, to open it in a single phase. Had we proceeded with our original plan to bring up the first group of beds and then the second at a later time, we basically would have been right in the middle of the Jenny Seeley commissioning and move also. That just didn't make a lot of sense to us, given all of the actions that are necessary, all the work that's necessary to get these facilities open. So we said, okay, we'll just do it all in one phase at League City, do it after the Jenny Seeley when we can devote our full attention to that. So that's our current plan. We feel pretty comfortable with that now. Obviously, we still need to set the exact date for the opening of the League City Hospital. We should be able to do that over the course of the next month or so as we're better able to predict the actual substantial completion and look at where we stand with commissioning activity. So that's the latest update. Merit pay. Our classified employees will again this year receive a merit increase pool or the managers will receive the pool for distribution to our classified employees. This is just as we've done over the past several years. That pool becomes available, and it's effective February 27th and March 18th for the paychecks. The pool for classified positions is 3%. For the eligible non-teaching positions is 3%. And for the eligible administrative and professional positions is 2.5%. For the latter group, it's effective on March 1st and April 1st, or latter two groups, excuse me. Now, I know the CMC folks never appreciate the way this is done. I really don't either. Merit raises for the CMC group have to come from the legislature. And we were successful in the last legislative session in securing an increase for that group. From our perspective, we're still behind. We've actually already started the discussions in Austin to prepare us for the next legislative session, which remember starts about a year from now, in January of 2017, to go back and show where the market is, where our people are within CMC relative to the market, and make a very strong case for another significant increase so we can try to catch up to the market. The other issue is that the faculty merits are now managed through the faculty compensation plan. This is something that's been occurring. The compensation plan has basically been adopted to try to be able to better recognize faculty for outstanding performance. And so, in fact, I think there's another additional modification that's coming relatively shortly based on feedback from the faculty and the faculty leadership to try to make that compensation system work a little more smoothly. So the merits for the faculty will be handled through the faculty compensation system. But certainly pleased that we can continue to offer merit increases, move along with the market. Some of you have asked me, well, how do you determine? Is it 2.5%? Is it 3%? Is it 3.5%? We have a variety of databases that we look at that look across all sectors of employment. They look across the country. They look at Texas. They look at the greater Houston marketplace. They also look at healthcare, and they actually discern between academic healthcare, nonprofit healthcare, all healthcare. And typically what we want to do is somewhere in the midst of where those databases lead us. So we take a look at those. We talk about the competitive pressures that we're feeling in the marketplace relative to people being concerned about their compensation and thinking about leaving to go to a place where they feel there's a richer compensation opportunity, and make a decision based on that. Now, please also remember that merit moves independently from market. We also look at the market for base pay at different levels, and sometimes we see that we have what we call equity issues, where the market has moved faster than we have relative to making adjustments in baseline pay. And so we continue to look across the spectrum of compensation, faculty compensation, classified staff, all forms of compensation, at where we stand relative to equity. We made a significant equity adjustment for our nursing workforce because that market is moving quickly. There's another one that's likely as we move forward over the next several months, again, just based on how that market moves. So with compensation, there's much more than merit. We try to always track where we are and make it market-based, but the market's constantly moving. And so you'll see us do different things at different times. However, in response to merit, most places are like us. They do this once a year. It's an opportunity for managers to distribute available funds to recognize performance based on what's happened over the previous year. So we're going to move forward with merit pay for our classified employees. Managers will be receiving the instruction shortly. And so again, pleased that we're able to do that. If you have additional questions about compensation, particularly compensation for your group, happy to take those. Happy to ask our HR folks to help us take a look if you have a particular concern relative to the market. Food choices. I think I get asked about food and parking more than I get asked about anything else, and we'll get to parking next. So what's out there? Well, we want to renovate Cafe on the Court. Those of you who have been with us since the time of Ike or around the time of Ike know that essentially that was a temporary fix that's lasted for quite a bit longer than we thought it would. That area was never really designed to accommodate a food servery as we have working there now that limits the type and the quality of food that can be offered in that space. And so we want to redo that and address some of those shortcomings. We also have heard a lot about, well, we want some other venues. We'd love to have a Subway back on the campus. We want a Chick-fil-A. This Einstein Bagels thing seems to be a hit in other areas away from Galveston. So we want to respond. We work with Morrison's, our food service provider, and basically bring these venues with their express types of service to locations across the campus. Now, these dates are still a bit in flux. What we're really concerned about is that we have adequate capacity to meet the needs of our employees, the demand for service, when Cafe on the Court goes down, goes offline so it can be renovated. And that renovation is probably going to take maybe 7, 8, 10 months. And so we're trying to bring these other venues up. We want to see how they operate, make sure that they're efficient. A number of our employees, particularly those who work in the health system, have 30 minutes for lunch. And so if we don't have the capacity to meet a concentration of demand around the noon period, obviously we're going to have a lot of unhappy employees. But anyway, these are the venues. I just want to let you know what's currently planned. We're still working out the details of the timing, wanting to be assured that our plans will accommodate the needs of our employees as we go forward. Parking. You know, with the opening of the Jenny Seeley, the shift in location of adult inpatient services, we think it's appropriate to shift the inpatient parking location to something that's more central. The Plaza Garage that's there between the Waverly Smith on the west, what we typically call the Seeley Smith Garage on the east, the administration building on the south, and the Jenny Seeley on the north, actually was originally built with patients in mind. We've been using it for mostly staff and faculty parking since it opened. We've directed patients to come to the administration garage. We're going to basically shift that beginning later this month with the idea of having all patient parking for the inpatient facilities located in the Plaza Garage when the Jenny Seeley opens. Now, I realize this is disruptive. It's disruptive because it's a significant change. We've already sent out notifications to a number of those who will be affected by this change, our employees who will be affected by the change. We've begun that transition. Please be patient with us. We're now looking at concerns expressed by individuals related to their status, where they'll park, and trying to make sure that we do the best we can for everybody. But our goal here is really to serve our patients well, to give them a central, readily accessible location where they can park. Remember, from the Plaza Garage, we actually have entrances from the garage directly into the Jenny Seeley. We want the Waverly Smith over the course of time to become one of the main entrances, particularly for the John Seeley after it's renovated. And so a lot of the changes that are listed on these slides are in service of trying to make it easier for our patients to have secure parking within easy walking distance to the hospitals. There are a number of things involved. The Seeley Smith Garage, Garage 9 as it's referred to here, the EA Surface lot, which was previously the Ampco lot associated across from Arlen's. There's the O lot, which is basically where the OB-GYN or OB residence used to be at 5th and Market Street. We're also expanding parking availability now at the primary care pavilion. The other thing that will be occurring over the coming months is installation of new equipment with new gates. One of the things that's been a great concern is that we continue to use these tokens for our visitors. Those are difficult to manage. And the new parking gates will actually allow for tickets, which can be validated by someone in our clinic sitting at their computer. Any of us could do that if we have the authority. So hopefully that'll also make it a little easier for us to manage visitor parking, providing reimbursement or something in place of a token that will allow our patients or visitors to exit the garage easily. So again, change is coming in parking, but designed with our patients in mind. All right, the last issue I wanted to talk about is safety of our workplace. And of course, with the talk about concealed carry and the legislature's actions, our work here to address that issue, that's a concern. We know what's happened around the country with some of these mass shootings, San Bernardino, some of the things that have occurred at other places across the country. And people are asking, we have some points of vulnerability, some points of interest. We have the national lab here. We have animals. Are we doing everything that we should be, to make our campuses safe? League City, very wide open out there. Angleton, Danbury, the same. So the issues on each of the campuses are a little different, but bottom line is, are we prepared? Are we doing what we need to do as an organization? And are we doing what we need to do as employees to make our surroundings as safe as we can? So I just want to talk a little bit more about that, provide some data, and then talk about where we go. For those of you who haven't had a chance and who would like to review the work of our Campus Carry Committee, that work is now, those draft guidelines they've sent to me for review are out there on our main website. You can use the little search bar that's in the upper right-hand corner from the main page and find the page that's shown on the slide here. In the upper, or the middle here, are actually the recommendations of the committee. There's a map. There's also a report from the System Council that's been addressing this. So there's a lot of information there that you can use to understand better about where we are now and what's ahead relative to this new law, which goes into effect for us in August of this year. So I won't say anything more about that. Lots of information, more work to come. I know it is a concern. We're trying to listen to and address all of those concerns. The system is certainly doing that. We'll hear from our Board of Regents and eventually, or ultimately from the legislature, relative to our thoughts about what we do and respond accordingly, so we stay in compliance with the law but do everything we can to make our campus as safe as we can. Now, one of the things we don't actually talk about a lot, even though they're readily available, are the crime statistics for our campuses. So I thought I'd just show those to you, and I think you will believe, as I do when you look at them. You look across a lot of these columns, particularly for violent crime. I mean, it just really doesn't happen here, knock on wood. We do have theft that occurs. This is mostly petty theft, if you will, things that go missing from our offices, from our work areas and the like. That number has gone up as the number of our employees has gone up, but still a low number, particularly when compared to some of our other UT system institutions across the state of Texas. Our police force is very visible. They're out there, and they're doing everything they can to make sure that we're as safe as we can be from the standpoint of police agency protection. And I think their marvelous work actually is manifested in these numbers. So I'm very proud of this. I feel like it shows that we do have a safe campus. That said, it only takes one incident to change these statistics markedly. So we'll come back to that in just a minute. We have a very well-trained police force. They're recognized as among the best in the country. They're certified by the certifying agency, COLEA, the certifying agency for law enforcement. And only one of 70 university-based police departments from among the 47 across the country who holds that accreditation. Accreditation looks at things like training, looks at response, looks at crime statistics, looks at readiness. And so I think that they've done a marvelous job in terms of thinking about the risk on our campus and being prepared to respond, managing those risks. We have 65 police officers, 31 security officers, and 24/7, 365 coverage at all of our campuses. I think all of you are aware of the coverage, but I wasn't sure if you were aware of the actual number of officers. We have 2 police pups. Not sure how many of you know that. Noe is here on the left. This is Officer Noe. This is Officer Jay. Noe, and Jay is being currently trained with the same sort of skills, is trained to do explosive detection and tracking. And so she works regularly with Officer Bronsdorf. And about every 2 weeks, Noe is called into service relative to some threat. Friendswood is the only other police agency south of Houston that has a canine who is trained in bomb detection. Just last week, Noe, in fact, Noe was the only one who was available, was called out because of a threat was thought to be significant at the Lamarck High School. And so Noe was involved in checking that facility and securing it, making sure it was okay for it to resume normal operations. Noe also is trained for patrol. Now, what the chief tells me is that Noe can bring down somebody pretty good size pretty readily. In fact, some of you remember we had the incident in the driveway. 2 people who were from off the campus actually got out and got into an altercation, and one actually used a knife to wound the other. And Noe got involved in that and secured it pretty quickly. The only problem was Noe was still so fired up that the rest of the police had to kind of stay away for a little bit because she was ready to go. And I saw Lieutenant Irwin here earlier. I thought, where's he? Did he have to leave? Okay, well, the chief is in the back. Now, the chief, how many of you know Lieutenant Ryan Irwin? To me, he's about 20 feet tall, and he's a big guy, not stocky, but a muscular fellow. And so the chief tells me that Noe can bring down Lieutenant Irwin pretty quickly. And so if she can bring down Lieutenant Irwin, I think she can probably bring down anyway. But I did suggest that perhaps, sort of an exemplary video might be helpful. So I hope that Lieutenant Irwin will go along with that. I think that would be very helpful and educational for all the rest of us.
Other duties that may be assigned, yes.
All right, well, I'm just kidding. I don't really need for him to do that. But, you think about the sorts of capabilities that we need, particularly having a national lab and having the research operations we have. It's really incredible that we have these sorts of resources, and they're regularly used, and they do help keep our campus secure, not only for us, but for our visitors and for all of the things, all the activities that happen here. And we have several special police units. We have the SRRT, which is the System Rapid Response Team. Chief, we have 3 or 4 members of that team.
4 members with Lieutenant Diori.
Four members led by Lieutenant Diori. And essentially this is a group that's trained in the special weapons and tactics approach to managing very difficult and dangerous situations. Our group here and the group as a whole train regularly with other agencies, so our group's been out training with Galveston, with Texas DPS, with the County Sheriff's Office, and so heaven forbid we ever have to use them in a real situation, but we do have that capability. And if you think about the possibility of ever having an active shooter on campus, a group like this would be very much involved in helping limit that threat, secure the situation, and then work with our other police officers to secure all the buildings. And so again, that's a special capability we have. We also have a critical incident negotiation team. This is a group of people who are specially trained in negotiating in difficult situations, basically trying to talk down those who are involved in some sort of threat. I think they have been deployed a few times, again, not so much for situations on campus, but for situations in the surrounding neighborhoods where there was a threat to other people, and they've been very successful. So again, a specialty expertise within the police force we hope we never have to use, but we're prepared if that's necessary. And finally, a special response group. This is a group that has special expertise in clearing large crowds. And I'm hopeful we're never going to have a riot on any of our campuses. If something should happen where the campus was in some way threatened by a large group of people, we have a group of officers who understand how to most safely de-escalate that situation and bring things back more towards normal. All of our officers are trained in self-aid and buddy aid, tactical trauma care. I think Dr. Rogers would tell us as a trauma surgeon, Dr. Molesky as a trauma surgeon, that the most critical thing to do with someone who is wounded, has a traumatic wound, is to stem the hemorrhage. And so our officers are trained in doing that using emergency measures. They actually have, I think, 13 or 14 kits that are deployed around the campus, which could be accessed in the case of an emergency where people are injured, and would be very much involved not only in securing the situation, but help deliver the early trauma care and secure the space so that our trauma teams could gain access and assist the patients who need help. And finally, regularly engaged in defensive tactical training. The chief was telling me a story about one of our experts being invited to a special seminar up in Houston and just sort of accidentally picked out of the crowd. They were really sorry they picked him because he showed them what he knew. So it's great that we also have that sort of capability, even though we hope we never need it. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, do you all know that we actually have liaisons assigned to each of our buildings? Do you know their names? How many of you know their names? Just a few of us, right? We should, okay? These officers are coming around, and their principal reason to do this is to become familiar with the work areas of UTMB and the workforce. I'll go ahead and bring the pictures of these 4 liaison officers up on the screen. You've probably seen them. You've probably seen them come through your office. If you have a chance, shake their hand, meet them, introduce yourself. They may not remember your name, but it's really important for them, for their function, to recognize familiar faces. Because one of the most important things, we'll get back to this in just a moment, is to recognize something, somebody that's unfamiliar. And also, if we know them, then we're much more likely, and the statistics show this, to think about notifying them if we see something we think isn't exactly right. So part of my message today is please get to know these liaison officers. We have them assigned to all of our buildings. You see in the lower left-hand corner, Officer Rydell, who's assigned up at League City. Officer Terrell Smith is assigned to the admin building here. Officer Greg Gayona is assigned to the medical research building, often also on station in the GNL. And Officer John Siverand, I think, Dean Watson, you know Officer Siverand. And so he shows his face regularly, certainly around the School of Nursing. So again, please introduce yourself, get to know these fellows. It makes us all more secure if we all know each other. All right, and that gets to this point. If you see something that doesn't appear exactly right, say something. Okay, now some of our folks are pretty good about this, and our police officers regularly get calls, particularly from the parking lots. We saw somebody who looks a little funny walking around a car out there. We think they may not have really had the best of intentions. Do you mind checking it out? That's exactly what we want. That's exactly what they want. The chief tells me that sometimes some of the most disappointing things that they hear from some of our victims of crime is that, I saw something that looked a little bit funny, but that person didn't really look like a criminal. What's a criminal look like? You and me, right? I mean, you really, I think back to all those crazy movies I watched when I was a kid in the 40s and 50s. Criminals all looked alike, the sloping forehead, big bushy eyebrows. That's not the real world. So if something looks funny, no matter what the person looks like, we really should say something, notify somebody. And we're going to be sending out some additional information to support some of the things that I'm saying today to try to remind us of who we call, who we contact if we see something that doesn't look quite right. Okay? But let's see if we can to reinforce this idea. If something doesn't look quite right, we ought to check it out. That's what helps our campus be very secure. Finally, what's the number one thing that we can do to make sure that our campus is secure? Now, you all are going to give me a hard time because I know I took this off to do the presentation. I always do for pictures and video, but wear your ID badge. Okay? Now, how many of you are sitting there with it turned around backwards? Please turn it around. Okay? And again, I think if we make this okay to turn it around and wear it the right way, it'll be okay for everybody. We have a number of our leaders in this room. One of the things that we know from crime statistics at places like this across the country, that the way people gain access is they'll grab a white coat, they'll kind of try to fit in with the crowd, they'll go through a secure door without an ID by following somebody who has one. And so what we're going to do is to basically put out some reminders. We're going to call this a kind of a mini campaign, Wear. Wear your badge every day, all shifts responsibly. Okay, now some of you hate campaigns, I apologize. But again, this is an educational effort to remind our employees those areas are secure for a reason. Sometimes we forget our badges. Understand that. So, but the response should be call somebody you know in your work area to let you in, call your boss, or call the police officer or go home and get your badge if you live within a reasonable distance. It's not to beg somebody you don't know to open the door, and certainly shouldn't be your expectation that they're going to do that for you. So what we want to do as part of this campaign is to make it okay for people to say, you know, I'm sorry, I know you don't have your badge, but it's really inappropriate for me to let you in this door. I don't know you. But let me tell you how you can gain access. Or I'm happy to call for you and help you gain access. Now, in some situations, that may be too scary to do. And in that case, our responsibility is to call the police. Okay? We understand that, and so we're not asking people to do things that are too uncomfortable here. But let's just think about what we can do with these things to help make our campus as secure as we can. There's actually a lot. And again, more information coming about that as we go forward. And finally, something that probably makes some of us a little bit squeamish. And again, this is something that the police officers are happy to come talk about with our work groups. But what happens if we have an immediate threat? What do we do? Well, these are the principles that are taught by the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, police agencies across the country. You know, just heaven forbid, you know, think about an active shooter situation. You can imagine we're sitting in a room like this. What if suddenly somewhere in this room gunfire erupted? It would be pandemonium. The noise, some of you shoot for sporting purposes. You know, you go to an indoor space, to an indoor range. The energy when a weapon is discharged is just amazing. And if you just have rapid fire discharge, that energy goes up. There's terror. There's that autonomic shock response when something unexpected happens. It's a crazy situation. Now, concealed carry, some people who believe in some aspects of that law believe that somebody who's carrying can pull out their weapon and return fire. That's not very smart. And that's not what we teach. Because number one, those of us who have a concealed carry permit typically aren't trained for combat. We're trained how to use that weapon responsibly and make it safe, keep it safe. And in that sort of pandemonium, the ability to react without the training that our police forces had is very limited. So that's why the advice is run, get away. Keep something between you and that shooter or you and that threat. Understand where you are and where the nearest exit is and do the best you can to get out of that dangerous situation. Hide if you can't escape. That's the second part of this. Again, trying to keep some obstacle between you and that threat. If you can, you're in a building where you're in a classroom or in an office, then do everything you can to secure the entrance to that office, obstruct the entry, and basically lock down that space where you are until the building is cleared by law enforcement. If all else fails and you have that immediate threat, then that last element is fight if you have to. Now, obviously, none of us want to be in that situation, but there are some things about disrupting the line of sight of the shooter by throwing things, ways to try to limit the ability of someone to harm you in that very difficult situation. And again, our police officers can talk about that, talk about the training in more detail, the ways that we should react. Now, again, these are difficult subjects, but I think these are the sorts of things that we should be familiar with if we're going to feel like we're doing everything we can to make our campuses safe. Okay? So again, difficult set of subjects, but I encourage you to contact our police officers, get them to talk to you about what to do when an unexpected threat materializes immediately. If we all understand what to do, it's that much more training for us, and I truly believe the statistics show that we'll be able to limit the damage that occurs, heaven forbid that we're ever in that sort of situation. Okay? All right, so wear a badge, get to know our police officers, think about what we can do as individual employees, no matter where we work, where we serve, to make the workplace as safe as we can. And more information coming about this in the coming weeks so we can access more of the material that's available to help us learn how to do these things. Okay? All right. Any questions? I know we're almost out of time, but anybody have anything that I can try to address? We've got this CMC group here. You guys have anything for me? I don't know, I get a chance to meet with you again in a few minutes, at least briefly, so you may want to reserve your questions for then. Anybody else?
Question, do the dogs have bulletproof vests?
Do the dogs?
Yeah.
Yes.
They do. All right, yeah. Okay, very good. Thanks. Thanks, Chief. What else? All right, well, I think we're close to the end time here. There were some questions submitted to the Employee Advisory Council. What we typically do with those is to provide responses, which are available out there on the blog, so those should be up in the next few days. And again, if there's something that I covered you want more information about, please let me know and try to get that to you. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.
UTMB Health, working together to work wonders.